Morning, 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 one and all. Happy New Year to you all. Welcome. We've got an escapee pony in the background. Some. Okay. Fresh pony of 2021. Oh, sorry, 2022. Gotta get that right. Yeah. Welcome to the first good morning walk of 2021. Not 2022. So happy New Year to you all for joining us. Like I say, welcome to the first good morning walk of 2022. Ooh. I have to excuse me because there's a lot of mud today. A lot of mud. So if I not paying attention to the screen, then you know how it beats. Crowban, good afternoon and happy New Year. Well, it's still technically morning here, earlier morning. But it's really warm as well. Ben, morning to you. Oh. So we're like slogging through the mud this time in the morning. There we go. Just ploughing through the mud. There we go. Hoops a daisy. There we go. That's better. Much a bit more solid land there now. Oh, but yes, good morning. Welcome, one and all, to the first good morning walk of 2022. Hope you're all ready for this morning. Hope you had a very nice night. If you did celebrate last night, I didn't. I very rarely ever celebrate New Year. It's just something that me and my family have never ever done. So I think I was in bed by about 10 o'clock, and then I think I woke up when all the fireworks went off, and that was about it. Oh, Henk, good morning to you from the Netherlands. Good morning back. Hope it's a very good, fine day there again this morning. Like I say, it's quite warm this morning. I think it's about 12 or 13 degrees over here, so it's actually quite warm. Shall we say, for a New Year's morning walk. Here we are. Hurt, good happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well. Like I say, and happy New Year to everyone else who's joining us. But yes, good morning. As I'm sure most of you may not be aware, we've now got new Brexit regulations in check. Yes, the checks that the government that have been literally kicking them down the road all last year because, well, businesses weren't ready, neither were the ports, nor were the customs checks were ready either. So more pony for you this morning. But yeah, this new lot of checks that are going to come in as from today. Thank you very much, David. Happy New Year. But yes, these new checks, businesses aren't ready for them. They're just simply not ready for them because the government hasn't prepared businesses for them. And we've said this, I don't know how many times before on this channel, even on these walks. The big international businesses and big businesses that are going to have like the capacity, because that's really what the issue will be here, to do these checks, because it will take time. You know, and I've got a friend who, again, he works in the manufacturing business here in South Yorkshire. And when the Brexit checks first came into him, it added an extra 2 hours of work that previously he didn't have to do. So if you're a company and now you've got that extra time that your employees now have to put your time in, that's going to cost you money. Not only that, but the cost of the paperwork as well is pretty expensive. You're talking at least, just for the forms, the customs checks, probably an extra £200-300, and that may not sound like a lot, but if you're an exporter, or you're even importing a lot from again the EU, these checks, they're going to be a nightmare for you. They're going to be a nightmare for you now until essentially we rejoin. It's, you know, it's the inevitable path, unfortunately. And a lot of businesses are really going to suffer for this. This isn't, you know, this isn't going to be like a short-term thing. It's going to be long-term. And the businesses that are going to suffer the most are not going to be, maybe the large ones will to some extent, but ultimately it's going to be the small and medium-sized ones that are going to suffer. And it's kind of bizarre for the fact that, again, we still have obviously Northern Ireland, the only part of obviously the UK that's been sort of left in the customs union single market. It is going to be fascinating to watch when we see economists compare Northern Ireland region and Northern Ireland businesses to the rest of the UK. Yeah, it's going to be hilarious when that happens. Joe, hi there, hello to you. Like I say, good morning to everyone else who's joined. But it gets even worse. It gets even worse. Because if you think it's just the delays at the border that could be a big thing because of Brexit, we'll have to see. Because one of the big issues that a lot of people have started to notice, and indeed it was heavily pointed out in a couple of like the logistics magazines that I've been reading about this, about essentially how smuggling from the EU is going to become the new British pastime because there is not enough capacity at the ports to carry out these checks. What they have now done instead is they have now set up inland customs checkpoints. So if you're a smuggler, this is what you can do. You pick up some contraband, shall we say, in the EU, head towards the UK. Now, if you get across, of course, because there are, of course, the French customs officials checking you, but if you can get through there, you then go into the UK, and the UK is going to be a cakewalk for smugglers. Do you know why? Because of these inland checkpoints, where they are now going to get checked. Essentially, what a smuggler can do: drive off the boat, drive off the Eurotunnel, go up to the customs checkpoint. They'll say, okay, you need to go here to get checked. I'll go, okay. Just remember, you're not getting checked at the port. He will then, first of all, drive to a new location, drop off his illegal goods, or the contraband, or whatever, then drive to his customs checking point And as far as the government is concerned, as far as HMRC, as far as anyone else is concerned, he has brought in a legal load into the UK. Yeah. Smuggling, ladies and gentlemen. Prepare for it to be a big problem in the UK very, very soon. Mostly because, well, again, this is the Conservatives' fault and the Brexiteers' faults for, again, being so hasty to trigger their precious Brexit, that they forgot to actually build the infrastructure they would need at the ports. Even in Rishi Sunak's last budget, there was absolutely no provisions or extra money for building these customs ports. But that's what happened. Well, yeah, what made me surprised indeed. Morning. Oh, Happy New Year to you as well. Sorry, I didn't hear you say that. There we go. But yeah, it's probably going to be chaos, I think, tomorrow, because I think a lot of exporters try to put off as much as exporting to the UK, and importers try to put off as much as they could to the UK as well. So yeah, this is going to cause a lot of chaos, and I think, just as we've seen, a lot of businesses this year have all said exporting to the EU now costs them more. Some businesses have given up completely, others have reduced their exporting because it now costs them so much. And if you don't have the capital to be able to set up, you know, in the EU, then bang goes your export market. And we've been seeing from other, you know, businesses, not only are their sales down to the EU, we've seen others lose like 30% of their business because they've just decided to stop trading because it's just too much of a hassle. It's now become too expensive. It's just, well, it's going to be catastrophic, and you are right. The Northern Ireland businesses are going to flourish because of this, because they're still in the customs union market. In fact, it's not. It's already happening. If you look at similar businesses in Northern Ireland, compare them to any other business or similar business here in the UK, their order books are chock-a-block. They've had little to no logistical problems. You know, it's that's part of the reason why Frost was so desperate, and I think Liz Truss will again continue this tradition, because I think it's next week. I think negotiations restart on this, and even though the government originally dropped, of course, the demand that they wanted the European companies, the ECJ, out of the Brexit out of the Northern Ireland agreement, Liz Truss came back and said that she wants that gone again. Now, we actually haven't heard a response officially from the government whether they are going to keep that or not. We don't know. But Liz Truss is once again going to play the Article 16 two-step, knowing full well that she can't trigger it. It's exactly like what Lord Frost did. And will this damage her eventual leadership run? If she can maintain this very delicate balance without it becoming too much of an issue, then no, it won't. If it becomes a massive issue for her, let's say she starts posturing even more than Frost, then it is possible, it is very much possible that this could possibly be an issue for her. But we'll have to see how it folds out. And like I say, that first meeting is, I believe it's next week for her, so we'll have to see how that goes. No doubt it'll be all over her Twitter Twitter bio and Twitter posts, as she always is a very, very active Twitterer. But above all, the one thing, of course, that's going to be the constant in all this is how businesses are going to react, and more importantly, the unions. Because previously, all like the business interest unions, like the CBI, Central Institute for Directors, Federation of Small Businesses, you know, the Unite Union, etc., have all been very, very Brussels focused, because that's where they had to go to have a say in the regulations. And now, this year especially, they've all pulled back. And one of the interesting things I think could be quite fun is if we start to see more union action and more building of the unions pushing now for, again, stronger powers that they lost. Could be interesting, could be very interesting. But again, that is something that we will have to wait and see, of course, to see how that whole saga unfolds. Because as always is, Brexit is just a continuing saga. Some of it, the disasters, of course, have been very well predicted and well thought out in advance of how they were going to go. And of course, I've often said that there will be surprises, unforeseen consequences that at the time we didn't foresee. And one of the things that I definitely want to talk about this morning is House of Lords reform. Because a lot of people I know do want to change our political structure. I agree with you on that. You know, I agree with you 110%. House of Commons voting laws do need to be changed. However, I've often said this before, I think that the PR's movement should not only be targeting the House of Commons, but the House of Lords as well. Because in the past, there's one thing that me and Nigel Farage, shockingly, have agreed on. And that is House of Lords reform. And I've said this before, again, time and time again, you can't allow the far right to dictate what happens to the House of Lords reform. We can't allow them to dictate that. Because if not, then they'll just say, oh, we're going to reform the House of Lords, and then it effectively just becomes another first past the post governing system where, again, the Tories have all the advantage. We can't allow that to happen. So it is very, very important that we on the left not only are pushing electoral reform for the House of Commons, but also for the House of Lords as well, because it is incredibly popular across all party lines, surprisingly. And it's often, hang on a second, just get down here. There we go. There we go. So the fact that you've got this possible proposal being very popular, I think is the way to go. I, again, must stress that we do not give up trying to change the House of Commons to a proportional representational system, because that will, again, be a big change in our politics, but also a big change in our politics will be making essentially our second chamber, the House of Lords, an elective body that gets elected, you know, by a proportional representation system. And I've said before, you change its name from like the House of Lords to the House of like regional representation, and then you split the and then you split the you split hello calm down, there you go. Sorry, I just had a very excitable dog. Hello. All right. Oh, he's all right. Here he comes again. Oh, he's all right. Got dog paws all up. Massively excitable dog there. But yeah, House of Lords reform, changing it from that to a House of elected regional representation. You pretty much split the regions up like they are now, and you balance it out essentially so that every region has the same electable members. Oops, a daisy. So just as an example, of course I haven't thought this out properly, but it would essentially go, you know, Yorkshire might have 5, or you might even split Yorkshire up into its different you know, regions. So like South Yorkshire might have 5, you know, East and Hull might have 5, and etc, etc, so that everyone has sort of the same number of people that they can represent. But then, of course, this comes into proportional representation. So this comes down to, you know, the proportionality of it being elected. And very often at times, and again, I agree with a lot of people, when you're looking at proportional representation, Cornwall is a fantastic to argue for proportional representation, because overwhelmingly all, I think it's 6 or 7 Cornish region MPs are Conservative. However, when you look at the region itself and you combine all those numbers, only about what? I think it's like 40% or so of the vote actually comes out as Conservative. The rest goes to the Lib Dems and Labour. So under a, like the, let's call it the the House of Lords regional representation, just for the sake of argument at the moment, what would essentially happen is, if we kept the current system but reformed the House of Lords, you're gonna have to excuse me if I don't look at the camera because there's a lot of mud here. I'm gonna try and navigate my way through this path. So the House of Lords, if that gets changed to proportional representation, will essentially mean that maybe the Conservatives, again, depending on obviously how you calculate the votes and who gets who, the Conservatives might end up with 2 people from the Cornish region, but you might end up with, for example, maybe 2 more Labour and a Lib Dem, which again would be a better regional representation for the UK. And I think even if we just did change like the House of Lords to that, to a PR system of voting them in, and again, I think give them the same stuff as an MP should. So they're effectively sort of MPs, but they sit in, the regionals. So they might be RMPs or regional members of Parliament, or RMLPs, regional members of the House of Regional Representatives. Although I don't know, might have missed out a couple of L's there. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It really isn't. People in our democracy underestimate how important the House of Lords is, especially when it comes to looking at bills, making amendments to bills. The House of Lords have very often, especially during the whole Brexit process, were the only place where serious debates about Brexit were actually taking place. And again, the House of Lords have their own scrutiny committees. Again, just as important to our democracy. And people don't realise how important it is that you can indeed change the House of Lords without having to change the Commons. Now, I do agree we have to change the Commons as well. I'm not saying we don't change the Commons. Again, like I say, if you are someone who is for PR, changing the Commons is the way to go. But we must also push for the House of Lords as well. Because even if we don't change the Commons, but we change the House of Lords, that will be a huge sea change in British politics. Because of all the that now, you would now have a second house. So if we ever end up in this situation again where like the Tories have like a massive majority that they gained through first past the post, even at taking those seats that they won, and of course the regional representational thing into effect for the House of Lords, they would not be in control of the House of Lords, aka the second house. This would allow any other party more effectively to be able to fight back and push back against Tory proposals in the House of Commons. So don't just think that you've got to change the Commons first. It's a matter of changing both of them. And I do agree, and I am with you 100% of changing the Commons, but we've got to change the House of Lords as well. And the House of Lords, compared to the Commons, is a far easier sell to a lot of people. It's a far easier call and a far easier sell to a whole lot of people, especially with the whole scandals crisis that we've had. You know, you can bring up all the fact that, you know, people have literally paid to go have a seat in the Lords. You can bring up the whole fact about, you know, There are still many lords in there who are hereditary peers, meaning that their title just gets passed on to their son, and etc, etc. There's so much of an easy sell to reform the House of Lords than it is to reform the House of Commons to the British public. And if we can, again, change the House of Lords and show the British public how good not only PR is, but how important it is, obviously, to like representation, getting like, you know, proper governance back again, then we will be able to change the House of Commons. So, like I say, by all means, do still continue to push for, you know, House of Commons reform, voting reform there. But also remember, it's far, far easier if you walk up to someone and say, do you think the House of Lords should be reformed? You're far more likely to get a yes than a no if you were to ask the same question about the Commons. That's my my first take on proportional representation of 2022. Oh, ugh, so much mud. See, it's so. I wish that farmer hadn't blocked off that gate. It'd be so easier to go the other way. We wouldn't have to plough all this mud. Nope. Yes, Happy New Year to everyone who's joined us. Happy New Year. Ugh. I don't know if you can hear that. Yeah, politics is indeed a dirty business. And I've got, like I say, after that dog jumped up, and I don't know if you can see. I've got me there. But yeah, like I said, I don't know if you can see. Super muddy. Super muddy. Oh dear, I stopped. Shouldn't have stopped there. There we go, there we go, there we go. But the other thing I want to talk about today, Piers goddamn Corbyn. Because, oh my word, I'm going to say this now, what Piers Corbyn did in Milton Keynes yesterday was an act of domestic terrorism. Like, let's not cut it either way. That's what he did. Him and his mob threatened NHS staff, destroyed government and NHS equipment, stole even boxes of like materials. Essentially what they did yesterday was not quite the equivalent, of course, of what happened, or what would have soon to have happened this time last year, of course, January the 6th, in the capital in the US. But it might as well have been, shall we say, an equivalent, because worryingly, of course, and we've talked about this throughout the year a couple of times, that the far-right activists are joining in with a lot of the anti-vax movement. And that becomes incredibly worrying, because do these people then join these organisations after all this is over? It's very, very worrying. Indeed, there was a guy called James Watt at that protest who was a part of Anne-Marie Walter's Make Britain Great Again party, and of course he then decided to join UKIP later on, after Farage had left. Let's say this now, the police are investigating and looking for footage and analysing what went on yesterday, which is good. So hopefully they are going to be determined, of course, about that. So that's good, at least. Like I said, I hope all those people do get punished for what they did, because I'm very much against everything that they did there yesterday, especially people deciding of their own free will to go and get the jab. And it's kind of funny that they themselves preach the idea of, we don't want to be told to go and get the jab, we're against it, and then do the exact same thing to people. Again, interesting. So hopefully that will be resolved, shall we say, sooner rather than later. But yes, hot take of 2022. Well, it's not really a hot take. Piers Corbyn, domestic terrorist. What happened? Essentially, down in Milton Keynes, Piers Corbyn led a mob to essentially attack a vaccination centre. They threatened staff, shouted abuse, stole and damaged equipment, even stole boxes of the vaccine as well, and then disposed of it in a bin, meaning that it couldn't be used. So yeah, so you can't have that essentially going on in this country. So essentially, I hope that, shall we say, they all get arrested and serve time at Her Majesty's pleasure. Yeah. Like I say, none of what happened yesterday was not yesterday, the day before now, in Milton Keynes was very good. And like I say, hopefully the police shall we say, keeping a closer eye on what they'll be doing. Because with that far-right element mixed in, again, something that I've been talking about most of the year, it's becoming very, very worryingly orchestrating attacks on these people. It's not just people like that, it's people in the NHS as well. They've also been targeted by this same group. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're targeting doctors during the pandemic who are, again, just doing their job, then they should actually absolutely be arrested, because they're trying to, of course, do this again during a pandemic. This comes up against again so much, but yeah, hopefully, like I say, the police are now, shall we say, watching them a bit more closer, shall we say, definitely for the future. Yeah, apologies for not watching the screen. Like I say, I'm going to try and navigate my way through this mud and make sure that I at least keep upright on the path. I'll go this way around. So if I do miss a question or anything like that, that's you know why. Oh yes, Happy New Year everyone as well who's joined us. Like I say, welcome to the first good morning walk of 2022. Of course, on Wednesday, we should also be having our first Wednesday video, and I think that maybe, my friends, We've talked a lot about GBBs in the past. We've talked a lot about GBBs and Good Morning Britain, which, well, the GB news station. So we might have pay them a visit, because it's been a while since we paid them a visit. Maybe we'll pop in and see what Jeff has been up to recently, because you can never go wrong with some content from Jeff. But the other thing I want to do as well is I want to. Ooh, this might be quite difficult. This might be quite difficult. Wish me luck. Go. There we go. There we go. So yeah, it might be fun to go see Jeff. Like I say, I've always said, Jeff isn't the type of person you can cover every single week. It just becomes too depressing and too samey. But I think a bit of Jeff now and then is cherished by the wisest men. So we're also going to have a look at the very right wing, I think, next Wednesday. Look at Talk Radio. Because we've never covered them before. But yet, so much stuff has happened in the past that we've missed. Think of them as the right-wing version of LBC. Think of it if... what's his name now? I can't remember his name. Who's like the breakfast morning presenter? But yeah, well... yeah, Talk Radio. I see you know them, dude. So yeah, it'll be fun to cover them and their, shall we say, wacky antics. Nick Ferrari, that's it. Imagine if it was like LBC was just Nick Ferrari, like 24/7, even more hard right. That's Talk Radio. So we're going to cover them, I think, on Wednesday, as well as covering some GB news, and ask that immortal question of how on earth are GB news managing to survive, especially this long. And maybe we'll have a look at what Darren Grimes has been getting up to on GB news, and shall we say poke at him, because it's always quite fun. So overall, an interesting start to 2022. Boris is in an incredibly weak position. There are enemies on his doorstep, and I've said this before, I don't think this time next year Boris is going to be PM. It's not a matter of when now, it's just if. Well, actually, no, it's the other way around. It's not if, it's when. It's when shall we say, the party realise that Boris is no longer their golden boy and golden ticket at winning elections. It is indeed going to be interesting watching what goes on in number 10, especially watching Liz and Rishi Sunak, how they're going to proceed over the next couple of weeks, because like I say, if you want to again keep a weather eye, of course, of who's going to replace Boris and Johnson, well, who's going to replace Boris as Johnson? Who's going to replace him? Then ultimately it's probably going to be one of those two. However, I have said hot take for 2022. Matt Hancock has just as much chance of becoming the next Prime Minister as Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak. And I will fight and debate anyone on that. Because he's been through a bit of a penance tour, as our boy Hancock recently. And I think there's going to be a cabinet reshuffle. And I wouldn't be surprised if Hancock finds himself back in the cabinet. Yeah, this is it. We're looking at the Hancock redemption arc. And potentially how he potentially becomes PM. So I will, like I say, I will fight and debate anyone on that topic, that Hancock could potentially become the next PM. So here we are at the end of our first Good Morning Walk of 2020. Like I say, I hope you've all enjoyed yourselves. Please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button if you aren't subscribed to the channel. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And of course, the YouTube memberships are open as well, if you'd like to support the channel that way. And as always, thank you everyone for joining us this morning. Like I say, Happy New Year to you all. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day today. As we say, if you can't be safe, be sensible. And enjoy the rest of your day. I know I will. Keep safe, keep wearing your masks, do your checks if you're going to go see your family, just to make sure. And yes, hopefully we will see you probably next Wednesday. This is when my next live stream is going to be. I've got videos obviously coming out obviously the rest of the week covering British politics, and of course if not, we'll see you next Saturday for another Good Morning Walk.